Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me. Today I am going to show you how to make this double zipper ID pouch using your Cricut. You can use the Cricut Explorer or the Cricut Maker for this, and the Cricut Faux leather. If you haven't noticed lately, I've been on a mission to show you several projects to use the Cricut Faux leather with. Now, when I created this, what I was thinking was when I am traveling, I like to have my ID with me and just a couple credit cards and some cash that I don't have to fumble through my purse and everything else when I'm trying to go through security. I want everything to be handy. So that's kind of what I had in mind when I designed this. But I thought, how many times you just go to the grocery and you just want to take your driver's license, your credit cards, and maybe some cash or whatever. So that's what this is for. So it's very simple. It's got two separate pouches. This one has the ID window in it so that you can easily keep your driver's license or whatever you want right in there, maybe your store card, whatever, and zip that up, and that's secure. And it is totally separate from this pocket, which you can keep your cash or some extra, customer cards or whatever you have that you need in there. It's also got a tab on it so that you can attach a handle if you want, or maybe your keys or whatever you need. You want to hang this on the outside of a tote bag or whatever. So that's kind of what I had in mind when I created this, and I think it turned out really cute. It's a lot of fun. Now, I am a lefty, so I created this one with the zippers on this way. You guys don't realize how many things are made for right-handed people. But for you righties, I'm going to show you in the video how to make it this way, but you can do whatever you want. You can mix and match your fabrics any way you want. So I'll take these cards out so you can see kind of what I did. This is all Cricut faux leather, and this fabric here is from Cricut. I will link that in the description below, as well as that fabric. And this one is just one from my stash. So without further ado, I will show you how to get started making this. I do have the Cricut Design Space file linked in the description below the video. And for those of you who don't have a Cricut, I will try to put the measurements or a PDF in the description below the video as well if you need to cut this out by hand. But if you have a Cricut, this is going to be a quick and easy project. So let's get started. Okay, the first part of this video is dedicated to the Cricut portion. Now, I did cut all of these materials with the Cricut, and I just wanted to give you a few hints when you're working with faux leather. One, put it pretty side down on the mat. I was previously cutting it pretty side up just because I wasn't paying attention to the directions, but it actually does tell you, and Cricut recommends you put it pretty side down. And then I wanted to show you, once it cuts, before you hit unload, look and see if it's cut all the way through. Mine looks like it's cut, but I think it could be cut a little bit better. So if you just press the C without unloading it, it will recut that mat in the exact same space. So that really is a good habit to get into, whether you're cutting material or paper or anything. My blades got a lot of mileage on it, so it's probably about time to be replaced, but I think I can get this cut out. I'm just going to have to cut it one more time. And you can see just how nicely running that through a second time really made a difference on how cleanly it cut the faux leather. So take the time to check your mat, make sure that the material is cut all the way through. Sometimes your blade isn't as sharp as you think it is and you don't even notice. But once you cut out your faux leather, you should have the pieces that look just like this. You also have a little tiny window where that small rectangle was cut out. You don't need that. That's just from the inside of the ID window. So once you have everything cut out, you'll have 4 pieces of faux leather. You're gonna have 2 pieces of fabric, your piece of clear vinyl, and I'll have all this linked in the description below the video. You're going to need 2 zippers, and the zippers need to be long enough that they fit across the bottom. Now you'll see there's 2 rounded corners, that's the bottom. So you wanna make sure the zippers are at least that wide. And then you're going to need a swivel lobster clasp. Now that's optional, and it goes with this small rectangle if you want to put it. If you don't want to put it, you don't need that small rectangle or the lobster clasp. So the first thing we're going to do is fold that small rectangle in half lengthwise, and then you're going to stitch down both of the long sides. And it's going to look just like this when you're done. Now you can just thread your lobster clasp, or thread the leather through the lobster clasp ring, just like so. You might have to bend it a little bit And you can always make it narrower depending on your lobster clasp size. But you're just going to fold it in half and kind of get it to start getting a little bit of memory that it's going to be folding right there, and just set that aside. The next thing we're going to do is work on our ID window. So you're going to need this little rectangle, and again, the rounded edges are the bottom. That's why I rounded just the one side. That's the bottom. And you need some double-sided tape. If you don't have double-sided tape, you could use glue stick or whatever you want. I will link the one that I use in the description below the video. Now, it's really humid here today, so mine's kind of sticky, extra sticky, but I like this double-sided tape. It makes this much, much easier. Your vinyl's not going to slide around on your leather. Now, by the way, I am using a universal 8012 needle. You might need a leather needle in your machine. It just depends. I have an industrial machine that I'm sewing on today, and it handles this just fine. You may also want to use a Teflon foot. If you don't have a Teflon foot, you can put Scotch tape, sticky side up, on the bottom of your foot, and that will help it glide along this leather. So you're just going to put that double-sided tape around the window and then adhere your clear vinyl right over it, just like this. If you have any sticky vinyl sticking out, or sticky tape sticking out from under the vinyl, you want to remove that. And then you're just going to stitch right around that frame. And it should look something like this. You can see I just stitched right around that edge. All right, so now we're ready to start applying our first zipper. So you need to decide if you want your zipper to open on the left or you want it to open from the right. I know you right-handed people prefer the zipper head on the left when it's closed, so that's what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is, again, use our double-sided tape, and you don't have to do this. You can just use clips or just hold it in place. I just find with the leather and the vinyl that it just kind of wants to stick, and this just keeps everything from sliding around on you. So I highly recommend the double-sided tape when working with the faux leather and the vinyl. Just to get, kind of like giving you an extra hand. And then you're just going to turn it over and place it right where you want it on the bottom half of that zipper. So we're just installing this one on top of the zipper, which is different than we usually do, but you just want to put it the zipper side. The zipper pull is up and you're applying it to the bottom half. And then we're going to take our long skinny rectangle and apply a little bit more tape right along the edge. And again, it's really humid here, so my tape's not sticking where it should be, and it's sticking to my fingers. All right, so now we're just going to line those two pieces of leather up, and this one's going on the opposite side of the zipper. And I'm trying to keep the distance between the zipper teeth and the leather the same on both sides. And you can use a longer zipper than this. This just happens to be what I had on hand, and it fit perfectly. So use what you have. Now you're just going to top stitch on both sides of the zipper. You might need to move that zipper pull to get all the way to the edge so you don't veer off and create a curve. And I'm just removing a little bit of that tape that was sticking out there so we don't have any sticky sides, but it should look like this. You can see I top stitched on the top and the bottom of the zipper, and we essentially have the beginning of our pouch. Next, we're going to take this piece and we're going to put it face down, and we're going to take our shorter piece of fabric and put it pretty side down, and we're lining up those rounded corners. Remember, there's a top and a bottom. The bottom has the rounded corners, and this is going to be a little bit shorter than your leather piece, and it is supposed to be that way. So I'm just clipping this into place, making sure the bottom is lined up. The rounded corners are lined up, and you should have about 1/4 inch or so at the top. Now we're going to stitch all the way around the square of the fabric using about 1/4 inch seam allowance, and backstitch 2 or 3 times as you go across that zipper. That's going to keep your zipper pulls from coming off. So make sure your zipper pull's in the middle. Your zipper pull should be inside, and then go ahead and sew around this to basically a square, and make sure that you backstitch quite a few times over those zippers. And here you can see mine. I've sewn all the way around and I backstitched over those zippers. That's going to keep those zipper tabs from coming off your zipper pulls. So it's secure in there. Once you've checked that your zipper pull is secure, you can go ahead and trim off those zipper tails and even everything up. So now you've completed that first ID zipper pouch part of the pouch. So now we're ready to install our second zipper. So in order to do that, you're going to take your second zipper, and again, you want, I closed my rotary cutter. I won't get any comments today. So you're going to make sure you put the pull on the exact same side, and then you're going to flip it down. So the zipper pulls down, and you're going to line that edge up with the edge of the vinyl. And again, you can use your double-sided tape if you want to hold it in place, if that helps, or you can clip it or just hold it as you sew it. Either way is going to work, but make sure the zipper is lined up with the edge of the leather, and then you're going to stitch right across the middle of that zipper. So now it's looking like this. So you're going to take your other piece of fabric and you're going to put it pretty side down. This is face up. So you're going to put this pretty side down, lining up right on that edge of the leather, right where you sewed before. Just going to make a sandwich, and you're going to stitch that right over the stitches that you previously did. You might want to turn it over when you take it to the sewing machine, but you're just going to stitch right across here. So here's where we're at right now. Yours should be looking something like, well, it might look like this. It's flipped down. So if you flip it up, you've got your zipper. You're going to put the lining down, put the leather piece down, and again, fold that into place. Kind of coax it with your thumb, just fold it down. And then we're going to take our clasp and we're going to place it so the clasp is facing in. And I like to put it right up here towards the middle of that upper section, but don't get it too close because we still need to put a top stitch in, or you could go ahead and put your top stitch in and then do the clasp after. But I just going to go ahead and I'm going to stitch that. I'm going to back stitch it a couple of times right along the edge, probably 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And it should look just like this when you're done. So I just stitched that within the seam allowance right on the edge, and it's only stitched to the leather and fabric side, not the long piece of fabric. All right, so now what we're going to do is fold that zipper up. Again, we're just trying to teach that leather that we want that seam to fold over and behave. We've got the long piece of fabric out to the right, and we're just going to top stitch along that edge. So basically we're just top stitching that leather where it folds over. I hope that makes sense. Let me see if I can show you better. So you've folded the zipper up, and when you do that, it folds the little leather right here over. So it looks like this. I might be confusing you more. But you're just trying to make that seam lay down so that it's not covering up the zipper. So we're just going to push that down, take it over to the sewing machine, and top stitch right there. And when you're done, it'll look just like this. You can see I top stitched right along the edge of the zipper. All right, so now we're done with this side. This is what we have. So you're going to flip it over. So we're going to flip it over, and we're going to take the long piece of fabric and bring it up to the other side of the zipper, just like this. It should be a little bit shorter than your outer piece. It's supposed to be. And you're just going to flip it up and stitch right along that seam. And it will look like this when you're done. So you have that seam stitched. If you open it up, you can see your other side, and your zipper is looking like this. All right, so now it's time to apply our last piece of leather. We're gonna, again, see the rounded corners, that's the bottom. So we're going to place this pretty side against the pretty side of the ID pouch. So you've got the pretty sides of leather facing each other, and we're just lining everything up on the edges, just like so. And now we're going to take that back over to the sewing machine and stitch right over where we just stitched. And here's where we're at. Should look something like this. Let me give you a couple different views because I know this can be confusing. So we're just going to push that zipper flat. So you just have a plain piece of leather on the one side, and you're going to push that zipper flat and top stitch right along that edge. And you can see mine right here. I top stitched right along that edge, and that's what it looks like on the back. So this is what it should be looking like. You've got a piece of leather on one side, you've got your ID pouch on the other side, and this little tube of fabric. You're going to bring the leather sides together and the tube of fabric together. And you're going to clip it. Now I would start up here at the top and clip so that the leather is even with one another, the tops of the leather. And don't worry about if the bottom is off a little bit. There is a little bit of leeway plugged into this just because depending on seam allowances and whether you're consistent or not, it might be off a little bit. So I gave you a little bit of a leeway, but we can always cut that off. So make sure your zipper is open. And then go ahead and clip the opposite side, making sure again that the leather's lined up, your zippers are lined up, because that part's going to show. We can fix everything else. All right, so now you have your tube of fabric on one side and your two leather pieces on the other. And you're going to grab a pencil or a fabric marker, whatever. I'm just using a marker so you can see it. And you're going to mark on the lining side, your fabric side, a space about, I don't know, 2 inches. I would go about an inch down from the top and then leave a opening at least 2 inches. And what you're going to do is backstitch, stitch down one side, backstitching at the beginning and the end, and backstitch several times over the zipper. And backstitch, sew down to your first line, again backstitching over the zipper, backstitch at the beginning and the end, and then pick up and sew again. Don't sew between the 2 marks you made. So you're going to go top to bottom, backstitching over the zipper, top to your first line, backstitching over the zipper, and top or the second line to the end. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end of all of your stitches. Don't sew between the marks. And once you've secured both of the edges in place, if you have any extra leather on the bottom, you can go ahead and trim that off. Mine was off just a little bit, and that's fine. Just trim it off. And go ahead and stitch down that short edge. And once you have stitched down the short edge, and remember we left that opening over on the side, go ahead and trim off your zipper tails. And now we're going to reach inside that opening that we left and turn this right side out. Now this takes a little bit of finagling, a little bit of work, but it's doable. Just take your time and push a little bit out at a time and turn this right side out. And once you've got it almost all the way right side out, use a bone folder, a chopstick, whatever you have, a point turner, and reach inside that hole and go ahead and push those corners of the faux leather out. This will be your last chance to get really nice corners on the faux leather. So go ahead and push those out. Don't forget to push out your corners up by the top of the zipper. And all that's left to do is to straighten out your lining and then go over to the sewing machine and stitch that opening closed, making sure to enclose the raw edges inside the lining. So just line that up. You might want to give it a little press and stitch that closed. And once that's done, you just tuck that lining back inside. And there you have it. Now, if your ID pouch looks a little crumpled, all you have to do is heat your ironing surface up, whether it's an ironing board or an ironing mat, whatever you're using. Heat it up with your iron and then just lay the ID pouch on top of the surface. Don't press it directly with an iron, but if you just heat up the ironing surface and then put the ID pouch down, it will take all the wrinkles out of that faux leather and the clear vinyl. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to click that bell notification so that you're notified every time there is a new video. And as always, if you make one of these, please tag me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, the Facebook groups, Facebook pages, and I would love to see your work. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, never stop making. See you guys.